Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right. I am John Palacio.
And I'm Marlene Cuellar, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Woo! Cool Wednesday morning, Mark. Cool Wednesday morning. Man, I'm so glad to be here. That much I can tell you.
Actually cool outside.
It's not like actually cool, but I think I just love being outside in the morning time. It's fresh. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. But we've got the pros on the line to tell us exactly what is not yet. To tell us what the weather is going to be like. We'll be joining the forecaster on duty coming up in just a few.
Yeah, we're going to find out what kind of weather we can expect. And yeah, I'm expecting it's probably just going to be hot.
Yeah, that's what I think, we should be expecting. So I'll tell you what, we're going to make it even nicer for you. We're going to read it for you. We're going to read it for you. So in the general situation, it's saying here, generally fair weather prevails.
All right, the 24-hour forecast is going to be sunny with cloudy spells today and partly cloudy skies tonight, and the showers will be isolated.
All right, the winds will be coming from the east to southeast at 5 to 15 knots, and that will be producing some light chop seas.
All right, here are our high temperatures for today. We're going to be seeing 87 degrees Fahrenheit along the coast, 93 inland, and 81 in the hills.
Lows for tonight crawling as low as 81 degrees Fahrenheit coastal, 75 degrees Fahrenheit inland, and 70 degrees Fahrenheit up in the hills.
And our extended forecast for Thursday and Thursday night. Showers or thunderstorms will be isolated, except for a few more over, guess where? The south. On Thursday afternoon.
Well, there you had it, the weather forecast. Francisca, we tried, man. And I did mention we are going to try and make it as nice as possible, but man, you got us out just like that. Speaking of the weather, I was looking at, because we normally do it with checks. So I went on NOAA's website, the National Hurricane Center, and there's already things going on out there.
Yeah.
And like, man, we're only in the month of May.
Yeah, I saw it, and I think I talked to my computer screen, and I said, "Go away!" Like I don't want to.
Yeah.
No, it's a low pressure system. It's nowhere near us. It's near the Bahamas, between the Bahamas and
the U.S.
The U.S., Florida, and I think it perhaps is just a good reminder for us. We are approaching mid-May, and we need to start talking about making preparations for the hurricane season. I know there's a lot going on right now. It's probably the last thing you want to think about, but we can't fight what the science is. And the science is that our hurricane season starts in June.
Definitely.
So preparing for it is really all that we can do, and that means putting aside some supplies. It may be extremely hard to think about putting aside money, but it is really important to put aside whatever you can.
Yeah.
Because if there is the threat of a storm and you need to move, or you need to prepare your house, or you need to pick up additional groceries, you want to know that you have that on hand.
Definitely. So we're looking forward to, I wouldn't want to say we're looking forward to the hurricane season, but at the same time, your hurricane preparedness plan should be something that we do every year. Yeah. Every year, June to November. Yeah. All right, so that's where we are.
And we know that actually the predictions for this year is a slightly above
average season. Indeed.
We have been so blessed so far, but isn't COVID a great reminder of how something cannot have happened 100 years, until 100 years later?
Later on, yeah.
So we do want to take that into consideration. No, don't worry. We'll be talking about hurricane planning before the end of the month.
Before the end of the month, yeah.
Yeah. We got to get moving, though, into our eye opener. And, of course, this is a bit of motivation to get you started for your day. And our eye opener is taken from dailyom.com, and it goes like this.
All right.
When we live life thinking, if only, satisfaction will always be out of reach. Since most of our experiences are rooted in cause and effect, we naturally want to justify our contentment. As a result, satisfaction is always just out of reach, and the very notion of grabbing hold of it seems like nothing more than a pipe dream. But the truth is that sincere contentment and fulfillment are never wholly the result of external events or situations. Though life's joyful moments can ignite the spark of contentment within us, that spark is fueled by serenity long established in our souls. When we forget this, it is easy to become stuck in if only patterns of thought. If we concentrate on the natural serenity that exists within us, however, we can move forward unimpeded by disappointment. There will likely be periods in your life in which you find yourself tempted to seek a magic formula for fulfillment that is centered upon a single goal or achievement. But the ingredients that come together to form the seeds of happiness that can sustain your spirit throughout the triumphs and trials of existence come from within rather than from without. When your search for satisfaction is focused on your soul, you will never fail to find the joy you seek.
I'll tell you what, this is definitely a great starter for the morning, and I think it should be a starter for one's life. We, for the most part, focus a lot on if only. When we live life thinking if only, satisfaction will always be out of reach. And I think that there are a lot of people who actually live their life seeing the if only. You know, what the eye-opener for me, what it transcends to me is, for the most part, when your search for satisfaction is focused on your soul, you will never fail to find the joy you seek. It's definitely something that is worth focusing on, especially for folks who see the if only. And I say this because for the most part, as human beings, one of the things that we do is that we go forth and we've got this goal. Some folks might say, I don't got no goal. But in reality, you do, because as long as you're looking forward to something, that's a goal. It doesn't matter if it's in the next hour, the next year, the next few years. But when we get there, we focus back on some of the things that we did to eventually reach. And then there is always that if only factor. For me, if only is also a part of the learning aspect of getting to that goal that you could actually pass on to somebody. Yeah. That's how I feel about it.
You know, this is really a very inspiring eye-opener.
It is.
I think we all do it. We all get caught up in that if only phase. And really, you know, you said if you have goals. I think it's just more general than that. I think we all have wants.
Yeah.
We all have things that we want and we wish for, and we keep on thinking, you know, if only you were taller, smarter, if only you did X, Y, and Z when you were 16 or 18 years old, if only, you know, you'd spent more time with the kids before they were grown, if only. And you dwell in the past, and sometimes you kind of just sit around longing for things rather than working for them. Perhaps, and I think it's my biggest takeaway from the eye-opener, being able to have gratitude for the things you do have. You know, so you may not be something that you want to be, but let's look at what you do have. You know, if only I had a nicer car, but I do have a car.
You do have
one
a car.
One that works,
yes.
One that, you know, if only, you know, there's so many things, the list can go on and on.
Yeah.
But then when you take the moment to take stock of what you actually do have, and sometimes the work that you've put in to get what you do have, it really can bring a level of contentment. Not necessarily complacency that you just say, well, that's it, you know, but it leaves you moving away from that state of just constant disappointment.
Yeah, definitely. Love the way you summed it up. The if only is always those two words that, you know what, it could knock you off at times. But when
I had more time.
If only I had more time, if only I had more height, if only I was smarter, if only I had made that move a few years ago. But we have to, for me, I think one of the things that we need to continue to understand is that we've got a story. we will tell a story, and a part of our life moving forward is actually to tell somebody or to caution somebody. Caution also comes with the if only aspect, because if only I had moved this way, this wouldn't have happened. But we're having the conversation, and so you know now where to go or how to build caution around moving that particular area. So I really and truly love the eye opener. I think it's definitely a way to start your day, and you could always research these things, read them, and try to make your day better by feeling good from what it says. I really like it, man.
All right.
Really, really.
All right. So we got to get moving into a show.
Let's do it,
of course,
man.
there is a lot to talk about. We do, of course, know that today we're expecting, or definitely before the end of the week, we're expecting to hear what the latest is in terms of updates to movement restrictions. Yesterday, there was a cabinet meeting where the recommendations that were put forward from the National Oversight Committee were discussed. What we have been told so far is some of the some of the activities that will be allowed for in the local tourism industry will include things like eating at an outdoor restaurant, the use of the pools and swimming in seas and rivers. Those are things that we've been told so far. Of course, we are expecting an official announcement in whatever form that may be to hear exactly what changes will be recommended. We are well past the 28-day mark where we have not seen any new confirmed case of COVID-19. I think the biggest thing that we have to, or biggest enemy right now would be complacency. It's not, school's out and we're all okay to kind of just enjoy. It is a very cautious time.
It is.
And we need to remain vigilant. We need to keep on washing our hands. We need to be respectful of social distance. Use our mask. That's what the regulations say. So you got to be out there. You got to have on your face covering, whatever that may be. And minimize contact. You don't want to be in crowded spaces.
And I think that we need to understand that up until a vaccine or something like that, something to that sort is out, we're not out of the woods. And there are people who are still breaking the law, traversing the borders to try and pinch what they've got.
Yeah.
And we need to understand that whenever you do that, you're actually putting your entire country on the line here with COVID-19. We're not out of the woods. Marlene, what you just mentioned is very important for folks to understand that we still need to keep our distance. Yeah. We still need to wash our hands. And I think these are some of the things that people are missing. Wash your hands.
And when it was very new, when we look back in March, we were all washing our hands incessantly.
Man,
And now we've gotten, let's be honest with ourselves, a little bit lax about it.
Yeah, we have.
I find myself trying to remember, if I touch something, go wash your hands. Try not to touch your face.
Yeah, that's the toughest one.
Because we still have to be alert.
Yeah, but and I think this right now, the situation that we're in terms of what we're trying to reopen is definitely going to be a hurdle for us. But this is definitely one to push our country in the front. Why? Because if we embrace local tourism. And folks, our Belizean people understand that, when we buy in our country, we build our country, this is definitely going to be a plus for us. So let's do that.
Yeah, and I think that's a conversation that we'll be having as well, just kind of looking at local tourism and the potential there. Yesterday, the president of the Belize Hotel Association said that local tourism actually only accounts for 10% of what the expectation is on a yearly basis. So in other words, it's mostly foreigners which we know. But I think what will be key is looking at the rates that are offered.
Yeah.
It is, most people, if you haven't lost your job, you've gotten a cut in salary, or someone in your household has, their income has changed. And so, the amount of expendable income that you used to have just may not be, is not there.
Yeah.
So if people are going to go after supporting local tourism, it means that it's going to have to be affordable. And affordable for the persons who want to travel, but of course also reasonable for the destinations themselves to be able to maintain their staff. They can't do it at a loss either.
And that's the thing. That's the tricky part of it. And of course, yes, we'll be discussing such thing today we'll be having an economist in, and he'll be telling us exactly how to move forward with that. Yeah. So we're looking forward to all three conversations. And like we mentioned in the first segment, actually, Belize's economic recovery options. So their options, and we'll be having a professional in to tell us exactly how we could recover from where we are.
That's right. And the second part of our show, we're going to be talking with the ambassador of the European Union for Belize. They celebrated the European Union Day over the weekend. So we're going to just chat with her about what that celebration was, and also some new funds that are available for countries like Belize.
Definitely, we're so thankful to get those helped. And in the third segment for this morning, it's actually going to be a Healing Touch Day. Healing Touch Day Spa, massage at home session.
Yeah, the
it could be nice,
spas
right? Could
still
be nice.
aren't open, so we are going to give you the skills that you need to do it at home. We're going to have representatives of the Healing Touch Day Spa, and they're going to talk us through how to get that massage at home. There's a lot of tension we're carrying right now, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So you can help out each other.
That's
We're
right.
going to close off for today with another edition of Kids Time. And Dr. Binox has been teaching us all about famous inventions. So today we're going to learn about the invention of the microwave.
Sweet.
That's what we have to look forward to at the end of the show. Do keep that in mind, parents. And with that, we will take a break. But before we do,
Yes, before
we got
we
a
do.
birthday shout out, and this is a special one.
Yes, definitely. We want to say a big, big, big happy birthday to none other than Chef Dwayne Lizama. Happy birthday to you, buddy. Always chefing something up. I hope that somebody returns a favor there for you, man. If we made help me, I should cook something for you, all right? So canned beef.
Maybe you would.
Yeah, canned beef rice. We got you, partner. It comes from all of us here at Channel 5 and all of us right here on Open Your Eyes. Buddy, all the very best to you.
All right, and with that, we'll take the break. But when we come back, we will be talking about economic recovery with Irvin Paris from Legacy Fund. So please stay tuned.
Wash your hands regularly. Soap and water is all you need to scrub and rub naturally.
Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back to Open Your Eyes on this lovely Wednesday morning. We're now venturing off into our first segment, actually. And it's actually a conversation about Belize's economic recovery options. What are the options that we've got on the table? Where are we now? Where do we want to go and how quick we could get there? Irvin Perez is on stream with us. He is the Managing Director of Legacy Fund Limited. Irvin, good morning, and it's nice to see you, my buddy.
Yeah, good morning, John. Good morning, Marlene. Great to be here. Great to have help. Yes.
Definitely. It's always nice to have you in. We're in a tough situation as we speak. Our country, especially that we bank on tourism for the most part. We're in a tough situation. Everybody is trying to get their hands on some money. The economy, we could hear from the PM, it's not looking too good. So I want to start as to where we are and how we could get things back to rebuilding. And I, for the most part, would think that this is upon all of us, Belizeans. We must start here with us.
Yeah, very true. You know, we can't just look at the current situation without understanding where we were prior to the COVID. And, you know, the Belize has kind of run over the last 39 years a pretty bad, generally bad economic policy from both what we call the kind of like the twin evils. Yeah. So we've been running for the last 39 years a significant trade deficit, and at the same time we've been running a fiscal deficit. And when that is done over a very long period, it always results in excessive level of debt. And high interest rate payments that has to go to the creditors. So prior to the COVID, we were not in a very good fiscal position.
Wow. Yeah.
Our debt level to GDP was about 95%.
Yeah.
We have high external debt and high local domestic debt. So what that means is that any external shocks and internal shocks, you know, the country does not have a lot of flexibility, maneuvering room, ability to borrow, to absorb those shocks. And that's some of the challenges that we're seeing.
Yeah. I'm glad you started with that point, because I think that what people, you know, the situation lends for people to just look at the immediate. And so we see, you know, a restriction on movement for a month and not much economic activity thinking, and we just kind of decide that it's the pandemic that has caused this financial situation. But in fact, you know, you stated the facts. Mm-hmm. We had been borrowing excessively for a very long time. Last year in 2019, we saw 3/4 of GDP decline. And in fact, the overall GDP was only improved by the first quarter. So we knew that we were already, you know, I think the SIB didn't necessarily call it a recession, but most people who commented on it did say that we were already in a recession. So we started off from behind, even going into this pandemic. But speaking of the matter of debt, that's one of the issues that I wanted to kind of tackle on early. We have been borrowing since the start of the pandemic. You know, and I think while people can look at it and say, well, you have to, there's no other way. But when you're already so much in debt, and then the Prime Minister says, I will borrow till I can borrow no more, what kind of implications does that have?
Well, you know, your borrowing is usually taking away from the, you know, the quality of life of the future generation if you're not going to then find ways of improving your productivity, such that you can then generate more income as a country that can then be used to pay down debt. and also to invest in new capital. But the prime minister, currently the government has no choice. I mean, you're in a position where, if you look at the tourism sector, which was providing 40 to 60% of GDP and was generating most of the foreign exchange that goes into the commercial bank. So let's take a look at the foreign exchange. So there is a couple of areas that were hit, right? And had tremendous difficulties. One was our foreign exchange reserves, because the tourism sector, by its nature, generates about 40 to 60% of that. And those funds tend to flow into the commercial banks, who then provide those foreign exchange to the importers and to service providers that need foreign currency. So when that industry just disappeared overnight, then all the foreign exchange earnings coming from those sources would have disappeared. So to some extent, those monies can only be replaced in the short run through international borrowing by the government. So there's no way of getting around that. That has to take place.
Okay.
Then on the domestic side, government revenues also collapsed because of the closure of the economy. So revenues from the business tax, from income tax, from GST disappeared. And again, the government still has to meet its domestic expenditure, payroll, operating expenses, etc. And again, the only way to do that in the short term would have been to borrow. The government did that, I believe, through the domestic market with the issuance of the COVID treasury bonds that was managed by the central bank. So those are short term. They're obviously going to continue to expand our debt level and put the country in terms of a medium to long term in a much more difficult position. So that is why at current, whatever we're thinking of doing should require some significant rethought of the structure of the economy and the economic strategy that the country utilizes. I mean, you're hearing from a lot of Caribbean economists, including those that I think should be speaking in behalf of Belize, that we cannot continue to bank our economy on the tourism sector because it is a volatile sector. So when that sector becomes 40 to 60% of your GDP, not only COVID, but
a hurricane.
A hurricane, exactly. If a terrorist organization had hijacked a cruise ship and God forbid some people had lost their lives, all of these things would have had tremendous impact on our economy. So where we are speaks to the level of diversity that's needed, especially in small open economies, and the need to ensure that there are stronger foundations to generate foreign exchange beyond the tourism services. It's not to say walk away from tourism as an industry. That's an industry that is viable, that creates a lot of jobs, that generates foreign exchange, but it's saying that there must be, going forward, a strategy to really, and I think when I was hearing some of the chamber's conversation, there has to be a strategy to look at the productive sector, the agro sector, as another engine, and the same level of energy and investment that has been taking place both publicly and privately in developing the tourist services has to be done in developing these other industries. So if that's not done, we won't learn from this experience. 2008 was an example where they had this global financial collapse, and again the tourism industry disappeared, and there was tremendous pain. What had allowed Belize to buffer through that period was at the same time petroleum was becoming a large exporter, and so the petrodollars was able to buffer the significant shock on the foreign exchange from the tourism dollars. Now that industry is not there, and so, but it showed that by having buffers, by having other industries that can not completely replace but support, the shocks to the economy, a small economy like Belize will be less sustained. And again, so in the short run, government will have to borrow. There is no getting away from that. That just means that our debt levels are going to continue to grow. So at the end of this or even in a very short run, 3 or 4 months, you may have a debt to GDP ratio of 150%, 130. So way on the very high end.
Yeah.
But that is expected in this kind of global crisis. All countries are borrowing.
Yeah.
What I was saying is that we started, and what you alluded to, Marlene, we started from a bad position, right? Because we would have had to borrow regardless. When those revenue sources disappear, and there are commitments to be made both from the foreign exchange side and the domestic payment side, the only thing that can be done to fill that gap is borrowing in the short run.
Yeah. So, when you look at the situation that we find ourselves in, and it was very clear early on into the April lockdown when there were delay in payments for some of the public officers, that it was already tight within the first month.
Yeah.
But when you look at what is currently our situation, what concerns you the most?
A couple of things, and I just kind of want to look at it through three prisms of the economy. So
Okay.
in Belize's economy, you could, and all economies, you can think about a couple of major markets. So there is the credit market, and in Belize, we're thinking about our commercial banking services where savers and producers interact, to be able to invest and grow the business. And then you have the labor market, and we're seeing the issues with that from both the public sector and the private sector. And finally, on the other side, you have the goods and services market. So that's everything from the local tourism product to just transportation to people being able to do things. So I think we should be significantly concerned about two areas immediately. One is the credit market, and the other is the labor market, because you can see stresses already taking place. So from the credit market, one of your guests from the chamber spoke about how the banking sector has not been some banking areas, I'll condition it to say that some of the banking institutions have not been very favorable at trying to manage the issue.
Yes.
And while others may have done more.
Yes.
And this is a role, unfortunately, a strong role that the central bank, through guidance from the government, should have put in place much more clear policies.
Yeah.
Right? I think the policies were a bit too discretionary, and we're not in a normal economic circumstances. You're in an extremely unique global crisis.
Yeah.
And so your regulator has to act very forcefully. Like regulators all over the world, they're acting very forcefully to ensure that the market, especially like the credit market, remains solvent, because they're looking at it as saying, okay, this is just an extreme shock. This is unexpected. This is not just simply a situation where you have some bad eggs, some companies not doing well, and therefore having a problem. That hasn't taken place as yet. So that's very concerning for me.
Just let me make sure I'm understanding you right. What you're saying is, and I do recall that point from the chamber, that instead of simply making the suggestion or leaving it to the individual banking institutions to decide what type of relief they were going to offer, it would have been more beneficial if there'd been actual guidelines set out to say that you would offer the relief to whether it be to personal people who are using it for their personal accounts or for business accounts.
Absolutely. So that's right, Marlene.
Okay.
It should have been very clear. The central bank should have listed out clear guidelines. This is what you're going to do. Yeah. So, we have made suggestions such as, a moratorium on principal and interest payments for the next 6 months out. Because what happens in credit markets is that credit markets try to determine risks, right? And then based on risk, decide how funds would be allocated and priced. Yeah. And right now, there is so much uncertainty. I mean, it's completely uncertain. So that's it's very, very difficult for credit markets to be able to determine risk at this time, because nobody knows, and this is globally.
Yeah.
Nobody really understands what's going to work out in the next month, in the next 2 months, in the next 3 months. It's completely uncertain. So what you would have wanted the regulator to do is to bring certainty of the relationships of the obligations in that market, right? So if you, for example, say we are going to have a blanket mandatorium for the next 6 months where principal and interest are not going to be paid, you are pushing decision way down and you create certainty in the market. So both players, both the borrowers and the creditors understand this is the circumstance that we're dealing in. And that gives the market enough time and the country and the globe to kind of understand what's going to happen over the next 2, 3, 4 months. So that then you can then determine at the end of that period, does this particular circumstance need to be rolled over for another period, or do we kind of open up the market now? I mean, and that I'm speaking about the credit market.
Yeah. Would that then just be shifting the impact to the banking sector, though?
No. So what you do as a regulator, the regulator then has to backstop the commercial banks.
Okay.
So not only do you mandate very specific policies, you then have to support the commercial banks that may have challenges in terms of their cash flow by providing them a line of credit. And that is the role of the central bank. It's the borrower of last resort. So it has to be very forceful in doing these things. One, this is the policy over the next 6 months. So what it does by mandating the principal and interest moratorium is it freezes the credit market, right? It freezes the credit market. It can allow it to be voluntary in some instances where you may have certain firms or institutions that are doing well and are prepared to pay their interest and pay their principal. But it would be just generally mandatory, so everybody knows what's going to happen.
Okay.
So if you have a personal loan, Marlene, or if you're a business loan, you know that for the next 6 months you don't have to meet principal or interest payments, so you can hold or you can save that cash. Now
Or pay your staff.
Or you can pay your staff, exactly. Now the central bank would need to then support the bank by providing them a line of credit, and that's the role of the central bank. So where banks would say, you know what, we're going to have some cash shortfall because of, you know, these loan payments are not coming in, then they have a line of credit. So this is something that could be worked out. But if it's not done, you tend to have that kind of lumpy, uncertain situation, as your guest was speaking about, where people are saying, well, you know what, I'm going to be worse off at the end of this from a financial perspective because my banker is doing this, and that, and it's not going to help me any.
Yeah, in fact, in most of the announcements, we saw that you were to contact your personal relationship manager to work out the details. So we really don't know what was settled on an individual basis with people and their bankers. So what you bring up, I think, is a really interesting point. The other point that came out from the chamber was also talking about access to capital for things like investment. And I wanted to talk about what the chamber is proposing, which is allowing people, very simply, to buy Belizean products. Whether it means a limit or restriction on importations on goods that are already being produced, and also allowing for some of the local producers to enhance the products that they're already making. What are your thoughts on that suggestion?
You know, I come from a free market school, so it's very hard to think about import restrictions, but clearly this is a scenario that we've not faced before, and so there's no reason why we should not test to see how that would work. So in the early 70s and 80s, when you had developmental economics, there was this whole what they call import substitution theory. And it's kind of going in that direction where you're saying, okay, if there's something local that can be produced, you're going to restrict the imports of those items into your country. So you talk about, I heard you speaking about cheese and milk and so on. Now, when that comes, it has to be very careful to ensure that the quality of those domestic products are also acceptable for consumption, right? So those are issues, but at this time, given the foreign exchange constraints, obviously that is one way of saving on foreign exchange by, you know, kind of forcing Belizeans to buy local, because there's not going to be substitute import goods that you can do. The one challenge that can only go so far in a country like Belize, because our consumption is highly import content. It's about 80% or 85% of what we consume is imported. And so that will only go so far, but it is not a bad suggestion, I think, at this time to consider, buy local. If there's a local producer that can produce a local good, then that's what you're going to consume.
Yeah.
But many other things, from our energy, from our telecom, is generated to some extent by, imported services or goods. So you're still going to have that.
Yeah.
Why was that not a policy going from in the past? It needs to be determined. But one of the challenges that I think is even more pressing than the buy local, because I think that can only go so far, like I said. So you can have, if you think about your protein content, you can have the chicken, you have the local beef, but how long can these be stored and all that can be. So from a food consumption, we may be able to restrict a lot of the processed foods and eat a lot more local goods. But from the other areas that we consume, the clothing, the shoes, the entertainment, etc., it may be a bit different.
Yeah.
But I think a big area, Marlene, that I see on the news, and I think the leads are seeing, is the whole labor market, and even at the highest level, the conflict that is developing between the public service and the government and the administration in terms of what has to happen in terms of cost cutting from government's perspective. I think it should not be a conversation that should have been completely bilateral, meaning PSU and the government. When you're having this tremendous labor disruption, it would have required all hands on deck. So you'd have had private sector, government, and labor sitting together to decide how we're going to cut costs.
Yes.
And one of the things that you see is definitely missing. And again, when you don't have certain things, it creates a problem, is trust. So there's a lack of trust between labor, PSC, labor government, and government itself, and the administration. So when you lack trust, it's hard to then implement difficult changes, right? And it would have been, I think, for the labor issues to be resolved, very important that you have all parties, like I said, maybe chamber representing private sector, you can have the NGOs, you have, all the major stakeholders have to come together on a table so that some kind of trust building can take place. And I agree to some extent with the union that government should lay its cards on the table. And the reason is because there's a lack of trust.
Yeah.
So when you don't trust the other party on the other side and they're also withholding information, then it becomes a problem. And we can see that on a global level between China and the rest of the world, right? China and the rest of the world, China and the US, where China has been withholding information in regards to the issues of the virus, where the virus came from, how the virus developed.
Yeah.
And so there's becoming a lack of trust, and that is leading to other political decisions being taken that will now impact on the ability of the global world to kind of work together.
Yeah.
And so internally, what we're seeing there between the PSU and the government is a lack of trust that requires some kind of ventilation of information so that something has to happen. We do know, and I think most Belizeans understand, that there has to be a reduction in wages, in the personal elements paid by government in the short term.
But you see, it's been very clear where that position is. And the Prime Minister, I think, has stated it more than once, that retrenchment, that scary R word, is nowhere in the horizon.
Yeah.
And in fact, he will meet the substantive salaries of public officers for as long and however he can. So if you're talking about a wage bill that is as big as we've seen, and it's not just in the pandemic time that we have been talking or questioning why it's so big. This has been every single budget cycle that's been a part of the conversation. How do you cut a wage bill if they're not talking about retrenchment?
Agreed. And so what the government has proposed is more of a reduction in the increase in that wage bill. So they're talking about allowances, increments, and these things augment your base wage bill.
Yeah.
I'm saying that for rational individuals, ourselves sitting outside, we would say, yeah, that makes complete sense. And this is the time where we have to have communal sacrifice. And so, yeah, that is, if you think you're a public service officer, well, I at least have a job, so that's great, and I should be willing to make the sacrifice. I'm saying the reason why you're seeing the challenges in terms of reaching a quick working arrangement there's a lack of trust. And when there's a lack of trust, what seems to be simple and straightforward becomes very complicated.
Yeah.
Right?
It's also not necessarily bilateral. I mean, there is a clear hierarchy involved here, and there has been a clear message communicated that if you don't agree, then we will change the regulations. So it makes,
So again,
I'm just saying, if I walk into a negotiation and you've already said to me, will you accept my position or I am going to forcefully implement it, then it isn't a negotiation.
True, and so you don't really start from a position of trust, right?
Yeah.
So, but there has to be clearly a reduction in the cost of government expenditure, and one of the fastest ways to do that is through your wage bill, right? And so that's what is taking place. I'm saying that we will need those public servants going forward, and they need to feel that they're part of the solution. And so you don't want to be in a scenario where you have demoralized, angry public servants that need to do their jobs in a time of crisis. So that's why I'm saying there's an important need for some transparency in terms of what is being requested. At the end of the day, the government will have to make the decision that it has to make, right? As you said.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it can be, what is the word? Just a spoonful of sugar and the medicine go down. So there has to be some sugar put on the table, and for the labor, it seems that it is information. We want information.
Irv, one of the things, what you're saying is definitely something to think about, and I think it clearly defines where we are in this position. I think, like you mentioned, the lack of trust puts us in the position to having so many dialogues. I think the PM, along with the PSU, should be sitting down today, having a meeting and trying to hash out the situation. They will be putting things on the table to say, okay, this is relevant or this is not relevant. In one of the things we also alluded to earlier, and I've got to take this, Marlene, from the eye-opener, the if-only situation with how the central bank and how government works with that. We also here discussing the economic recovery options. Irv, from where you are looking in, do you see anything on the horizon to say, yes, this could work, especially for the fact that we're trying to bank on local tourism? Do you see this as a viable option going forward? And I'm asking you this as a professional, because for some folks it might come as an ease of mind to know that there is something on the horizon for us. What are your thoughts there?
Well, as I think the president of the Hotel Association was saying that local tourism had only contributed about 10% of their revenues. It is something. It's better than nothing.
Yeah. And
it gives them an opportunity to see and to test how they can manage their services in a COVID-19 period. So he had mentioned all the protocols, the health protocols that they will have to implement to ensure the safety of their guests. So it's a good pilot in terms of saying, okay, this is how we'll be able to manage our guests when they come in. It allows them to test their procedures. Are they viable? Do they work? Such that in a phase-wise opening, as more and more individuals would return to the sector, to the service sector, international guests as well, you have kind of worked out the logistics of doing that. But it's not going to return the country to the kind of economic circumstance, pre-COVID-19.
Yeah.
So I think Belizeans have to be prepared for a very long and difficult slog. I mean, and that's every place in the world. We are even more in that particular predicament because where we were, and because our economy is so dependent on the tourism, external tourism services, which generates our foreign exchange. And the earliest, we are hearing of possible opening of the country to external visitors is July the 2nd, I do believe. So that's even a couple more months from now.
Yeah.
So you're thinking about maybe 30 days. And then the question we'll have to ask ourselves, will the tourists return in the level that they were before?
Yeah.
And clearly there's a global fear of travel.
Will
Right,
they
and
want to
of
travel? Can they afford to travel?
Exactly, Marlene.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ifs. The one, one of the good things that you do highlight about Belize is that the level of the COVID infections seem to have been relatively low and seem to have been relatively well managed. So in terms of those variables, you have those things in the general, information base. So people looking at where we can go if they do want to travel outside of their country, like if Americans coming outside of their country. Belize might want to adopt a strategy of trying to attract Belizean Americans to come home. Because the reason why I'm saying that is that sometimes what will incentivize someone to travel when there is some concern about their health is what we used to call in economics non-economic factors, right? So it simply means that it's just hard, right? Belizeans are going home because they want to support the Belizean economy. So they're prepared to take a little bit of risk instead of going maybe to Europe or going to someplace else to travel. Belizean Americans abroad might decide we will travel home for the next year or so that we can bring the foreign exchange to our country. So there has to be something there that I think beyond just, a strategy, beyond just a general strategy to try to invite tourists back to the country. The other areas, as I believe, so in short, John, I'm thinking in the short run, no, the country is going to have a very difficult time, and we have to kind of accept that.
Yeah.
What we can do, I think some of your guests had mentioned the agro sector, Belize having the actual comparative advantage in terms of agro production for the rest of the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And that has to be now taken on with an extreme urgency to see how we can get those markets open. Stable like food, people always have to eat, right? So if you want to think about really investing in industries that are what you call basic, if all else fails, people will want food. People need food. And so if you can then jumpstart that industry in the main, get your products into the Caribbean and generate foreign exchange from there, that will help offset. So your guest from the chamber that spoke about the urgent need to do so, he's absolutely right. That should be most critical. It's easier to get that going than to think about getting the tourism services back to where it was post-COVID.
Yeah, because trade is unimpeded at this point. That's the only thing we know continues to flow for the most part with limited challenges. So you're saying that if we prioritize the agricultural sector, are you talking about just focusing on the main industries that we have right now? We know there's citrus, there's banana, there's sugar, there are marine products that have always done relatively well. Should we also be looking at expanding what our export capacity is in agriculture?
I'm thinking expanding. So the poultry industry has the capacity to really ramp up production and get their poultry into the Caribbean.
Yeah.
So that has to be, put on priority number one. The Trinidad, Jamaica, the Caribbean is one of the per capita poultry consumption per capita is the highest in Trinidad.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? And so there is no reason why we should not be working extremely hard to get our poultry there because it's going to generate foreign exchange, right? And it's some, like you said, it's bread and butter. People will eat despite the circumstance.
Yeah.
When people feel comfortable, psychologically comfortable to return to traveling for entertainment and for leisure, that's really hard to say. It may take perhaps a 1 year to 2 years before you see recovery in the tourism sector.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think your guest was right to say, so we need to start looking at, while tourism is getting back on its feet, what is going to generate our foreign exchange, because that's what we need to continue to grow the country, to invest in the country. And if that is not dealt with most urgently, meaning at the highest level, and I understand what he's saying, it means at the prime ministerial level.
Yeah.
you know,
Working
you
directly
want-
with CARICOM and
Exactly.
COTED and ensuring that there's access. We saw the sugar troubles last year that we'd never thought that under CSME would have been as difficult as it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And everything, and also you'd want as much value added as you can. So, besides just sending the poultry as whole, you could have chicken parts. And the more production you can put in your agro sector before you export it, the more value added you create, the more local jobs you create, and the better is the industry. So those are areas I think we have to look at to see how we can then generate foreign exchange. The other area is definitely technology, and that's another area. But I think the tourism sector will take some time to return. I know individuals within the tourism areas are trying to develop something called virtual tourism. I don't know if you guys are aware of
No, I don't know about virtual tourism.
We've heard about. Well, I've heard about it.
Doesn't sound like
But how do you?
as enjoyable as sand on the
Yeah.
between your toes.
Yeah.
Well, you have an individual that is kind of like videoed up, and then you put on like a virtual
The VR sets, right?
VR set,
Yeah.
and you kind of control the individual. So, by telling them, let's walk down the beach in Placentia, and you are experiencing, or supposedly experiencing it virtually. I don't know how far that's going to go, because like you said, Marlene, having the sand in your toes is an experience that kind of sometimes have to experience. But I'm just saying that.
But you know what? I think for the people who have been cooped up for a month, two, and going on more, they'd probably appreciate the VR experience. So, it's not taking anything off the table. And that really is my question. Irvin, without a doubt, because everybody else is kind of looking for strategies on how to rebuild or boost their economy, this is a time for innovation like we've never seen before. So we know what worked pre-COVID, but we don't know what the rest of 2020 is going to be. We just know we need to get the economy up and moving. What are your thoughts in terms of how we're going about this? Because I'm not too sure, and I may be misinformed or uninformed in this, but I'm not too sure there's a recovery committee that has been established, or a group of persons who will be able to share ideas and brainstorm and be able to think of how and what we can implement. And it'll probably take trial and error in some cases. To be able to kind of get things starting again under this new reality we find ourselves in.
I do believe, Marlene, I've heard about that economic recovery team. Now, I'm hoping that, yes, that there is a broad outreach to brainstorm as to strategies going forward, and that they are willing to have errors. So you're right that trial and error is often a good way of going forward. Not being willing to take risks is not going to be acceptable at this time. One of the things that has to be taken into consideration in terms of going forward is that there's going to be an increase in cost of doing business, a tremendous increase. Because if you think about anything from transportation and ensuring that your transportation services are safe to travel on, and what are the policies you have to put in terms of cleaning and testing, and every goods and services being produced is going to generate additional costs. And then there is also the social distancing that has to be maintained. So, you're thinking about a transportation system that will have to move with less passengers on a particular bus. So is that sustainable? So there's so much work, that you're right, Marlene, that has to go into thinking out how we're going to recover economically, and what is going to be some of the cost of doing that. We know that the models that we had prior in terms of cost of doing business is going to be different. And so all of those things have to be factored in. One of the things that I think you mentioned is the role of innovation. And so that's important, that enough innovative minds are brought into whatever recovery committee to start thinking outside the box in terms
Yeah.
of what is going to work, you know.
And dare I say intergenerational?
Absolutely. The young kids have a lot of ideas and
Yeah.
do a lot of things differently than we do.
Yeah.
Are a lot more social media savvy in terms of how they can generate business from that kind of activity as well. So it's clearly a time where, you know, globally, everybody is trying to think about how the new norm is going to be and how can we survive in that. But, you know, we have faith that the country believes has the wherewithal to do it. It's whether there's a willingness now for all people. So as I think your guest had said before, it's kind of like we have to all come together to work as a family in terms of trying to move the little country forward, no?
Yeah.
And in times of crisis, we have never failed to come together. I think that's one security we have in Belize. It's just knowing what direction we need to go, or it's advised that we go, as to how we'll be able to kind of help things move in the right direction. Irvin, I can't let you go without being able to talk to just, you know, everyday people in Belize, because I think the unemployment numbers are really concerning. When you look at 80,000 applications, we don't have studies right now, and the census was put on hold. So we had 80,000 applications for unemployment assistance. According to, I think it was about 40,000, my numbers may be off, but not all of them were approved. But the point is that we're looking at a large number of people who see themselves as unemployed or not making enough that they needed the assistance. Even people who are working are now facing cuts in their salaries. And so there's just less money that people have even to be able to contribute to the economy. For your own personal budgeting practices, what's your recommendation? How do we manage through this, especially given the uncertainty ahead? Because we could be facing another shutdown or lockdown, you know, in the near or few months from now, future.
So one, you want to conserve cash as much as possible. You want to probably delay any non-essential purchases that you may have wanted to buy. You know, you really want to conserve cash. I think for us to get past this together, we really have to also be very neighborly. You know, you want to look out for your neighbor in the front, in the back, in the side. How is the person doing? How is your family doing?
Yeah.
Can I, you know, lend them some flour if they need flour? Can I give them some eggs? Do I have a little vegetable garden? I can share some of my vegetables with them. I think so. Conserving cash, being, you know, my brother's keeper, is important at this time, because, like you said, until we get our economy to some kind of normalcy and it's generating some kind of economic activity, which has to include export, because we are such a huge import consumption, small economy, then how much we help each other as a community will tell us how far we're going to go, you know? Because some people will be in a better circumstances than others. If you think rural families might be better off, you know, especially if they have the little farms and can do their own kind of sustainable living. But urban families may have a little bit more challenge because it's a much more cash based. You need cash to buy stuff.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things that has to happen where we're kind of working collectively as a group. So hoard cash, not too much, because the businesses need you to spend as well. But if you spend on what is really necessary, that will be useful. If you can help your neighbor, that is useful in any way, whether it's just a pep talk or, you know, a little bit of flour, a little bit of sugar. So this is kind of like basic kind of, you know, living together.
So we should be downsizing. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, we should be. We should be thinking about how do we conserve in what we do. Again, the chamber mantra of buy Belizean. If you can afford to buy Belizean products, buy as much as you can. If you can afford to do that little vacation and spend a little money on the local resorts, do it. You know, so it's just a way of trying to support your economy while as much as possible conserving your cash.
It's been a very interesting conversation. I think you've really put forward some great suggestions, and we thank you for weighing in on the topic this morning.
Before I go, Marlene, one thing on labor, and that's in the private sector, I think there also has to be some clarity with cost cutting. And I do understand that private sector business, we have to make tough decisions in terms of staffing and salaries.
Yeah.
But one of the things, if there is some commitment from the private sector when they're cutting emoluments and benefits for their staff, that there's going to be some compensation for the staff going forward in the future when things are better. I think that would be a good thing to do, as opposed to having individuals lose those benefits permanently. You understand? Because I know there are businesses that are saying, okay, we're going to go have to cut 50% salary and you're going to take 50% for the next couple of months, whatever. But if we are on the recovery on the other side, then there should be some give back to those individuals for making that sacrifice, right? Whereas you would have put individuals in very difficult long-term circumstances post-COVID, when we are past this on the other side.
Yeah, and then their recovery takes long too.
Exactly.
All right, Irvin,
Irv.
thank you so much for chatting with us this morning. Stay
Not a problem.
safe.
It's great to be
safe.
here.
Yeah, and do enjoy.
Same.
All right.
Same.
All right.
Okay, bye.
Bye. And there you had it. That was Irvin Paris, Managing Director of Legacy Fund Limited, sharing his thoughts on Belize's economic recovery options. What we're going to do now is take a break, and we're going to be talking about the European Union Day and some of the activities that they did to celebrate. So that's coming up after the break.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service. Technology is ubiquitous.
we're back.
Just like that, we're back, and we're now moving into our second conversation for the morning. Belize celebrates Virtual Europe Day 2020. We've got the ambassador in with us to tell us all about it. That's Malgorzata Wasilewska. I think I got it correctly. Good morning.
Good morning. You did very well.
Thank you so very much. I feel that's an 80%. So we looked at this and reading it out. Belize celebrates Virtual Europe Day. People might say, what is Virtual Europe Day 2020? And doing some read up, it simply means that when we became a part of the European Union. So let's get into a quick or brief history of it and how we celebrate.
Thank you so much for having me this morning and for giving me an opportunity to do this virtual celebration. Virtual because, unfortunately, I am not able to come to Belize. I used to be a frequent visitor. I was in Belize every 2 or 3 months,
Wow.
so missing it terribly.
We miss you.
Thank you. On May the 9th, every year, Europe celebrates the establishment of European Union because it was on the 9th of May, back in 1950, so 70 years ago, that then the French Foreign Minister Robert Schuman delivered a speech in Paris where he presented his vision for a new political and economic cooperation in Europe. This idea, of course, came out of all the unfortunate events of the Second World War. So Europe in itself is a peace project. So as you see, there's plenty to celebrate. Next year we will have 70 years since the first treaty was signed. So it's a very special celebration for us because I'm sure you'll agree that until today, Europe is not only the most successful peace project in the world, but also the most successful integration project, or regional integration project in the world. So it is a moment for us Europeans to reflect on and recommit to the founding principles of what Europe is all about: peace, democracy, and very importantly, international solidarity. This solidarity is particularly important in 2020 because the motto for us today in the middle of the pandemic is stronger together.
Wow.
You know, it is such a unique time, and I think that when you think of the integration process and the concept behind it in kind of having that solidarity with your neighbors, you know, we're seeing that on the ground level, and we're also seeing it between countries as well. So I think it really puts it into perspective. But had we not been talking about the pandemic, perhaps this Europe Day celebration would have been distinctly different as the rollout of Brexit was unfolding.
Yeah.
You know, it seems to have kind of fallen off the radar, at least for the rest of the world. I don't know about in Europe. How do you put that into perspective when you celebrate?
Well, the Europe of the remaining 27 countries is very strong, and of course it is very sad to see one member state leaving. But for me, in particular, as a Polish citizen and relatively new member state in the Union, I have seen for myself how much my country, my people have benefited from joining the European Union. When I look at the generation of my son, who is 27 today, they really feel European. They embrace what the diversity and the richness of cultures, languages, the proximity of countries, the open borders, the possibility to study and work across Europe, what it really gives to them. So not just economically, but also politically, the values of democracy have made an enormous difference in my country coming out of communism. So the stronger together for Europe is one thing, but the stronger together in terms of partnerships, in terms of relationships with countries like Belize and other countries that I cover in the region is particularly important today because of the incredible impact of the COVID-19 virus on the world, and sadly, so many people have already died from it.
And, I think of all the support that Belize has benefited from the relationship with the European Union.
Apologies.
We're going to you have to tell them that we're just more important, right?
Yeah. Tell them you love Belize and Belize is
Show that Belizean love. But I was saying, Ambassador, that, I think each time we have you here, we get to be able to look at the amount of support that we have been able to benefit from the European Union. And even in the midst of facing the pandemic in your own, within the countries in Europe, you have managed to be able to put together some funds to help us in this region. Talk to us about that.
Well, our partnership is more than 30 years strong. And over that period of time, European Union has provided more than 200 million euro in financial and technical assistance to Belizean people. So that's quite a sum. It rolls off the tongue so easily, but it's a huge amount of money.
Yeah.
And over the years, a lot went on infrastructure, sugar and banana industries, and so on. But this year, because of the COVID pandemic, we have globally immediately try to refocus and rethink the money that is already allocated for countries in order to assist with fighting the pandemic. So in Belize, the EU is assisting through the Ministry of Health with more than 1 million euro for the response to COVID through flexible basically, our procedures are known for being quite cumbersome and difficult, but we have opened up unprecedented flexibility so that we could move funding, and that million in Belize is mainly used for the personal protective equipment and supplies to regional hospitals to further strengthen the response to the outbreak and to help to contain it, which of course, as we know, has been very successfully done in Belize.
Yeah. And so while we're on the topic, and it's so nice to know that we could be a part of such governing or such body. When it comes to the tourism aspect of things, we know that for the most part the Caribbean is heavily we focus there. That's one of our biggest focus. What's the conversation like right now with member countries in terms of how we'll go forward with tourism in the EU?
Well, it's a little bit too early to have those conversations because, unlike Belize, for example, the rest of the region is still struggling with the virus. Belize is the only country that I'm aware of that is in clear, and I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the government of Belize, in particular the Ministry of Health, for responding and containing the spread of the virus so quickly. The other countries have not been so lucky yet, so the borders are still closed, and there are first conversations as to when the borders should open. We have in the European Union focused, first of all, on the response. And we are also at the end of a current financial cycle. Our assistance comes in certain periods of time, so we should be now having a conversation with the respective governments on what would be the priorities from 2021 and how we should focus our bilateral assistance. You know that our assistance comes in the form of grants. They're not loans, but they're grants for the period post 2020. I'm pretty certain in all the countries that have been affected, we will be talking about how to help the governments in restarting the economy and recovering from the pandemic. But those conversations are not there yet, partly because we don't know yet how the spread of virus will affect some of the countries, but also because our own budgets have not been approved. As you know, Europe unfortunately has suffered hugely from the pandemic and is still struggling with it. So the budgets have not been approved as yet. But I'm sure we will have these conversations. In the meantime, we had already, for the current cycle, prioritized health sector as a priority sector for the current cooperation programs. And under the health sector, we are funding refurbishment of 3 regional hospitals, Orange Walk, Belmopan, and Dandriga, and 2 community hospitals in Corozal and Punta Gorda, as well as the Central Medical Laboratory in Belize City. We will also be helping to upgrade the Belize health information system. May I just add that the priorities that are selected for support are not imposed by us. It's always a conversation with the government, and whatever government deems a priority for the forthcoming future, we mutually agree, if we see the added value, that would be where our support would go. We also are supporting energy sector as a big sector. That's still under preparation, and it will provide solar energy to rural communities in the southern districts, which are not connected to the grid. And then we have a much smaller amount of money on public finance management, where we are helping to strengthen the Office of the Auditor General, the Internal Audit Unit, and Contractor General's Office. There is also one other program which at the moment is delayed, but we really look forward to it restarting, and it's a Spotlight initiative, Spotlight on family violence. And again, because of the challenges that the COVID pandemic has brought, part of the funding under that will be refocused to address issues specifically related to COVID, because in many countries around the world, there is a rise of domestic violence, unfortunately, because of the pandemic.
Definitely.
You know, you spoke of all the plans that were in place, and with the beginning of 2020, we started to see restrictions on movements and just the impact of the pandemic. So where does that leave us in terms of the status of the rollout? I mean, do you just put plans on hold until 2021, or it's a wait and see as we go along?
Well, things get a little bit delayed, but because we can relax some of our strict procedures, hopefully it will not impact it too much. But as you know, a lot of things are on hold. Life is on hold, you could almost say. I think we're still awaiting the announcement that the House will approve new measures in Belize, which will be less strict. So hopefully things will relax a little bit. But there will be also more relaxed approach to deadlines, because everybody understands that there are limitations. So I think over a longer period of time, the implementation will not suffer too much, because obviously the support both to health and energy in particular is badly needed in Belize. How it will impact on new priorities and new budgets and what they will be, it is still too early to say. But as I said, I'm pretty certain restarting the economy will be a priority. Tourism is a major source of income for majority of the countries. But don't forget that we are, and I'm very worried about it, I'm almost holding my breath. We're a step away from the hurricane season. Yes. So let's just hope and pray that under the shock of the pandemic and its impact on people, on economies, that the hurricane season will be gentle and will spend.
Yeah, we do share, of course, that same concern.
Same sentiment, yeah.
In you know, you spoke of relaxation of deadlines, but you know, I think it's a hard time to be able to talk about what we know exists, and some of the protocols in terms of how contracts are given out, and just the due diligence that is done, especially with grant money, like from the European Union, is always something that we have a concern about. And when you're in an emergency, decisions can be made ad hoc or perhaps faster, But you do still have all your checks and balances in order, right?
Absolutely. We have an excellent cooperation with the government of Belize and with the Office of the National Authorizing Officer. They're very familiar with our rules, and don't worry, we have a responsibility, just like the government. We have a responsibility to be accountable, transparent. So the relaxation is only in terms of being able to move funds to where the greatest need is, and to extend some deadlines, simplify some procedures. But by no means would we stop paying attention to how the money is spent and what on. There I have no concerns whatsoever.
Excellent. And looking at maybe just shifting timelines, we know right now of all the things that the development cooperation does include, it is wonderful that we were already planning, or you were already planning on being able to make this investment in our healthcare system. Is it perhaps going to be looked at to prioritize that before all the other commitments that have been made?
Well, as I said, the health sector is already a priority and is getting quite a substantial amount of funding. What will be the priorities beyond? We would need, beyond this period, we would need to restart the conversations with the government, because the pre-pandemic and post-pandemic conversations will be very different. Prior to this, we were looking at issues of crime and security, for example. Post-COVID-19. I would imagine that support to economy and recovery of economy and tourism sector we might need to look how if at all we could assist that, because we're not always best placed to support every sector, because even if you reopen the borders, even if you reopen the hotels, you've got to have people coming. And how the world will behave and to what extent we will all be traveling the same way as we were before, it's still too early to say. What kind of security measures you have to put at the airports, in aeroplanes? Will the companies be able to afford distancing on a plane? So many have already gone bankrupt. I think there are too many questions. There are more questions than answers. So I think one step at a time.
One step at a time.
We do understand how difficult the timings are. And while the conversation continued, I think one of the things, as much as, when it comes to the whole COVID-19 situation, it's very tough upon the entire world, especially more so on our sister countries in the EU. But rebuilding and the conversation of agriculture, especially for Belize being one of those countries with tremendous potential. Are there any conversations along that line in the EU, with the EU and various governments, in terms of rebuilding? Are there any conversations there?
Well, there are already reflections, but of course it's easier to follow them when you are in Brussels. But there are some reflections how EU reacted and whether EU stood together and whether all our solidarity internally really stood to the test. As you know, the borders were closed in many countries. Some countries closed the borders completely, others closed the borders but allowed movement inside European Union, whether single markets delivered as would have been expected, and so on. And again, these reflections will continue, but at the moment, Europe is not free of the virus yet, and very sadly, people are still dying. What we have done, though, is we have, you may have heard that there was a pledging conference together with many international partners, and Europe managed to raise 7.5 billion euro to support research worldwide to find a vaccine and effective medication for this. And that is an effort to not just focus on competing with each other, whether it will be Canada first or Singapore or New Zealand or somebody else, but just to pull all our resources together and make sure that the best of experts can work effectively to to find a solution, and that is a sign of solidarity. When it comes to things like agriculture, I completely agree with you that there has to be a reflection by each country, but I think the region here needs a reflection on why Caribbean isn't better at feeding itself, where you are so lucky to be living in climate and countries where, as a friend of mine says, you can put a stick in the ground and it grows into a tree. Why is there no more sustainable food production? And we have to look at, for example, at our economic partnership agreement. Why is it so expensive to bring goods from Europe? When I go to a supermarket here on Belize and I find something that costs me a euro or euro and a half, say a piece of cheese, and I pay 6 or 7 or 10 euro for it in the countries in the region. Why is it so expensive? We are supposed to be having no tariffs at the moment. It's 10 years since we signed one of the most comprehensive economic partnerships agreements in the world, and it's still so difficult to bring products either way and make them affordable. So there'll be many conversations, I think, that each country will have to have internally with partners, and then regions, and then region to region.
All right. So, Ambassador, is there anything else you'd like to share with us? Probably we've missed or.
Well, as I said, I am extremely impressed and would like to congratulate the government of Belize for controlling this terrible virus so effectively. I look forward, and I hope that the borders will reopen before the end of the summer when I'm due to finish my term. And I look forward to coming back to Belize and at least one more time before it's time for me to move on. And I hope by that time a lot would have reopened, and despite fears that there will be many tourists coming back to beautiful Belize as soon as possible, because we all know how much it is needed.
Absolutely.
So I will wear my blue very proudly on that last visit, the colors of Europe. And maybe we will get a chance to meet again.
Yes, we do hope so. And of course, we do hope you're staying safe as well.
All right.
All right,
Ambassador, thank you so very much. And it's always nice to see you. And like you mentioned, hopefully we get to see you soon. All right?
Yeah. All right.
My warmest greetings to everyone in Belize.
All right, thank you so very much. That was a wonderful conversation with Ambassador Malgorzata Wasiluska. I think I got it correctly. In terms of Belize celebrating Virtual Europe Day 2020.
That's right. Now we are going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, how do we relieve the stress that you've been feeling? Of course, there's lots of pandemic stress. The spas are closed, so we're going to give you some at-home tips of how to gain that relaxation. That's coming up after the break, so stay tuned.
In these challenging times,
juguetes, otras manos y caras.
Yuck!
Los gérmenes enferman a la gente y por eso es muy importante lavarse las manos.
Hooray!
Es importante lavarse las manos, así que sigue estos pasos para hacerlo bien.
Primero.
Encienda la llave del agua y humedezca las manos.
Segundo.
Use jabón en las manos y frote.
Tercero.
Enjuague las manos por completo.
Cuarto.
Ahora que sus manos están limpias, use una toalla de papel para tocar y apagar el agua.
Quinto.
Seque las manos con una toalla de papel.
Hooray!
Sigue estos pasos cada vez y mantendrás alejados los gérmenes. Así que recuerda, la mejor manera de combatir los gérmenes es lavarse las manos.
And welcome back to Open Your Eyes. We are now moving into our third segment for the morning, and this one is definitely a good one. Healing Touch Day Spa Massage at Home session. So husbands and wives, check this out. We've got Eva McFarlane. She's the manager and owner of Healing Touch Day Spa. Manuel Maradia, who is a massage therapist of Healing Touch Day Spa. And there's a model in there as well, and that's none other than Ariza McFarlane. Guys, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Jan. Good morning, Marlene. How are you today?
We're here.
I am jealous
doing
of your
good.
model.
I
That's
know,
what I
right?
am. I am wishing I
both
was
are.
the one there who was preparing for the demo. We know that spas, let's be clear, spas are not allowed to open as yet. And that's actually what's prompting our conversation this morning. Eva, tell us a bit about how things have been going.
Well, Marlene, as you know, since the lockdown, March 23rd, we've been closed since then
Yeah.
and not been able to open. So basically, we are just at home enjoying the time off and at the same time praying for things to get normal again.
And I'm sure you miss your clients, and you know it's difficult for businesses to be closed for such a long time.
Yeah, it's hard, but we are positive that hopefully things should change, you know, since we're free of COVID and awaiting probably they open the local tourism and then we'll be able to open.
Yeah, you know, something tells me that's not too far along. So while we're in this situation here and we feel that spas might reopen sometime soon, the importance of a massage, how important is it to get a massage?
Well, John, it's very important because massage helps relieve stress and it helps you to maintain balance and stay healthy. And especially with having COVID, getting a massage regularly also helps boost your immune system.
Yeah. What about your stress level? Does it reduces it or?
Yes, it does. It does help with your stress level because especially at this time that people are worried about everything that you could think about. And of course, I know there's no money to get a massage. That's why we're here today to show our audience that even though we don't have money, we are jobless, but there's no reason why we cannot get some pampering at home.
Yeah, and you're going to teach us how, because a massage is not just pinching a shoulder, and it's not just rubbing oil on someone. But if
No.
you know, it's always funny because a masseuse can really tell a lot about you by just kind of starting off with touch, because we carry so much stress in our body. I mean, yeah, like I think after a while you learn to detect it. Like when my neck starts to disappear because the tension rises in your shoulder, you know, okay, you gotta relax a bit. Talk to us about some of the areas that we commonly carry or stress.
Well, definitely with experience, of course, getting a professional massage, the therapist knows where you carry all the tensions the moment they touch your body.
Yeah.
But stress is something that we carry a lot in our neck, shoulders, back, and it has to do, depends the kind of work you do basically. It's like people who work a lot on computers constantly, hunch over, they get a lot of tension in their necks and shoulder. People who exercise or do sports also get a lot of tension in their legs, arms. So massage is good for everyone.
Yeah.
Overall. Yeah.
Men and women.
Men and women and kids too. Because even though people don't pay attention to children, but they also carry a lot of stress.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Definitely.
Yeah.
What's your clientele been like? Do you get men as well?
Yes, because our business, Marlene, we are open 20 years. We are the first pound talker. And most of our clientele, it's tourism. And that's why it affects us so much. If we don't have any tourists, we have no business.
Oh.
And the few locals and Belizeans we have, well, it's not enough to go around. So, yeah, we're closed down totally.
Well, we appreciate at least that you're going to be giving us some at-home tips, and it will only give people a tease as to why they need to go to the professionals afterwards.
Yes, we want to start off, Marlene. We are going to give them 3 different tips.
Okay.
The first one would be how to do a facial at home.
Okay.
And then the second will be giving them a back massage.
Okay.
We choose to do a back massage since that's where you have all your nerve endings and that's where you get all your relaxation
Yeah.
first.
Okay.
And then after that, we will show you how to do some Reiki. And we'll explain that as we go along.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Let's start off then. So we are
All
first
right.
starting with the facial.
Yes. All right. So Manuel, get in your position. Let's show our audience. And let me switch over to Manuel.
Okay.
I know.
Let's see.
You have your own studio there. We're going to do a camera switch.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I hope I'm doing this right. Let's see.
Well, right now we're still seeing you. Now
All
we're
right.
going over.
All right.
There we go. Hi, Manuel.
Hi, Manuel.
Hi, Arisa.
I think she's not hearing you.
That's fine.
Okay.
Okay. So can you see Manuel?
Yes,
Yeah,
we
we can see
can.
both of them.
Talk us through it.
All right. So getting a facial at home, it's not difficult, and you could use ingredients that you have right in your home.
All right.
So I'm sure everybody at home, whether it's male or female, they have their favorite face cleanser. And if you don't have one, there's a baby at home. You must have Baby Johnson shampoo, right?
Okay.
It's very mild. So there's no reason to go out there and spend money to get a facial. So you would start off cleansing the face, put a little bit of your favorite cleanser in your hands or baby shampoo, and you start cleansing the face using circular motion like what Manuel is doing. And then after cleansing the face, well, you're at home, so you would be able to wash it off, but we will just wipe it off here with a towel. And then also you would need to exfoliate to take off all the dead skins, all impurities, and you have that ingredient at home too. So if you have some brown sugar,
Yeah.
put some brown sugar in a little bowl. You could add, if you have olive oil. If you don't have, you could always improvise and make this rather than doing 3-step 2. You could use that exfoliate and cleanse at the same time.
Yeah.
So first you clean and then
Right.
you exfoliate. But
Right.
what I notice is Manuel is being very gentle. So it's not like, trying to dig the sugar into your face. It's
Well, what he's doing right now, it's the cleansing. So
Okay.
we are not using baby shampoo, but we are using the cleanser that we use at the spa. But at home, like I said, you could use the baby shampoo or your favorite mild cleanser that you use for your face. So what he's doing right now, he cleansed and he's cleaning off all the soap he used to cleanse the face.
Yeah.
And then he would follow by exfoliating with some brown sugar, and we add some olive oil in it. Of course, some people buy spa products, and if you have at home anything like lavender, you could drop a few little drops in it to get that aroma. But if you don't have it, just do the olive oil with the brown sugar, and the procedure will be the same like what Manuel is about to do now. Apply on the face, start scrubbing again, circular motion, try to get all the areas like, the cheeks, the chin, forehead. And what that scrub is doing, it helps to take off all the impurities, dead cells, if you have like blackheads, whitehead.
Yeah.
So, and you scrub very gently because everyone have different type of sensitivity when it comes to their face, as that's the most sensitive part of your body. And so those are ingredients that you have at home. You scrub gently for a minute or two, then you rinse off the scrub, which Manuel will do right now. And after, we will use a facial mask that will moisturize your face, and it's an ingredient that I'm guessing everybody has honey at home, right?
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Great
Honey.
Moisturizer.
Right, and not only that, the honey, it's also anti-aging. Again, it removes impurities. If you have any skin problems, honey will help with clearing that up. So Manuel will clean up the scrub for now, and then apply the honey, which you could leave on for 15 minutes or so, and then remove it, and that's how you have a facial. But of course, I'm talking faster than he's going.
Yeah.
But I tell you what, I think one of the things that strikes gold for me with Healing Touch Day Spa is we could see Manuel, and of course he is professionally dressed. He is wearing his protective devices, so everybody could see that. Then again, the atmosphere within the spa is very nice. It's a very clean environment. So folks should look out for it when it's said that spas could be reopened, right?
Yes. Well, definitely, John. This is the way how we normally work. So, like with COVID, I think the only changes we will have to do is probably like making sure everyone sanitized before coming into the spa.
Yeah.
But the therapists, they have always dressed professionally using their masks and gloves. So with that part, we won't have too much challenge.
All right.
Yeah. So what I wanted to say also about the facial is very important because it's anti-aging. It gives you great skin. It helps you to reduce stress also, especially for we ladies who always get psychologically distressed when we have a pimple comes out on our face or a spot or something, So it's very nice to have a facial at least every 3 weeks or a month, because that's how long it takes to regenerate the skin.
And what you're showing us is the at-home version, and I love that you're talking about things that we can have. Usually, I mean, you're a spa, so you have spa products that you use.
Right.
But for the rest of us, we don't necessarily invest in specialized facial products.
yeah.
So to recap, you said just a regular, gentle face wash to start.
Right.
And if you don't have special face wash, then you could just use the baby body
Johnson
wash.
Yes, the Baby Johnson shampoo.
Yeah.
That's gentle for baby, so it's gentle for your
For
face.
skin.
And
yeah.
then
Right.
then the exfoliation step, it's just brown sugar and olive oil that you mix together to make a
Right.
scrub and gently exfoliate the face. And then the
Right.
final step you said was
No,
to
but
just
I miss, this step that Manuel is doing before the mask, I missed that one. I know at home no one has a towel cabinet that like what we have here. But you could create that because what he's doing right now, he's applying a hot towel on a rice face that will open up the pores. So what you could do at home, I'm sure everyone has a microwave at home.
yeah.
So the same towel, that's the small face towels you have at home, you could soak that in water, make sure you wring it out as dry as possible. You roll them and you put it inside your microwave for a minute, and you will get the same effect, yeah. And then you could apply like 3 towels on the face. Make sure that you don't cover the nose though. You need to have the nose so they could breathe. And you know, the eyes are very sensitive. So before he applied 2 cold eye packs, and you could use just common cold water.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just dump the eye pads in the water, apply it on top of the eyes, and that will help you not for the hot towel to make you feel sensitive.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could go ahead and take out the towel, Manuel. So because we're on air time, so we
Yeah.
cannot show everything, but
So that's why I don't want us to lose out on that back massage part, right? So
Right.
what other steps can we do at home?
all right. So after doing that, normally if you would be at the spa, if you have any blackheads, whiteheads,
Yeah, you
would
do the extraction.
extraction. But
Yeah.
I don't recommend to do that at home because that's the part where if you don't know what you're doing, you could bruise and so skip that part at home and then just apply the honey as the mask.
Okay.
Like what Manuel is doing, you just will put as much honey as necessary to cover the whole face, and then you would lie there and relax for 15 to 20 minutes.
Oh, so
And then
you're gonna rub it on kind of as a thin layer, and then you're just
Yes.
gonna leave it there for a bit.
Yes, you leave it there 15 to 20 minutes. That depends how much time you have to relax, right? Because sometimes you're a mom, you're at home, you're moving around, and
Yeah.
you don't have much time. But 15 minutes, 20 minutes is good, and then you just washed it off, and that's it. That's your home
That's your facial.
spa facial.
Okay.
And like I said, you could do that every 3 weeks, and honey is very good. I guarantee that will just make you look rejuvenated and have beautiful skin.
I think you said one of the most important things, and that's that this is a process you don't want to do every day, especially the exfoliation part, because that's
Right.
too harsh
Right.
for your skin.
Mm-hmm.
So every 3 weeks, you just find this little 20 minutes for yourself, 20 to 30 minutes for yourself, and you can be able to replenish your skin on your face.
Yes.
Lovely. All
Yes.
right.
So that's it for home facial.
All right.
Okay.
Of course, if you come to the spa, it will be a complete different experience.
Yeah.
But
Of course.
I'm glad you said that. There are lots more steps that you would do, but there are things that require a professional to do it that you don't want to encourage people to do at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I think
Yeah.
the atmosphere at that spa would really put the additional touch to it because it looks very cool. Ariza looked
Yeah.
like she is sleeping, by the way.
Yeah, and a part of that, you have all the smells, all the aromatherapy you use.
Yeah.
The room is cool, air conditioned. So yeah, definitely, then you would be hearing the spa music in the background.
Yes.
It's a complete different experience.
All right.
So what Manuel is doing there, because we don't want to be flipping Arisa over and over, whenever you're lying face up, that's when you could get a neck massage where
Okay.
you have all the tension. So
Okay.
what he's doing that, he puts some massage oil on his hand, but if you don't have massage oil at home, you could use your favorite lotion. All you need is something to make it slide.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if the camera could pick up what he's doing.
Yeah, we could see it.
Right. So he just applied oil and now he start working on the neck,
Yeah.
making sure that you don't go into the bone. And also he will be working the across the shoulders as you go along.
Oh. Is she up?
If she's what?
If she's up, because she looked like she's having a good nap.
Yeah, the thing is, the moment you with all the ambience and all that, and the therapist touch you, it's easy to relax and go into that to that sleeping mode. Yeah.
And there's no judgment for snoring.
No, we get that all the time.
Really? Oh my God.
You could drool and it starts snoring.
All right, now that's pushing it.
Yeah, nobody will know.
Okay.
All right, so we moved into a head massage now.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's massaging the neck. So, and even Marlene, when you get a neck massage after a facial, that also helps to relax, relax the face, make it have that glow, and you look refreshed. So, all right, Manuel, he's doing the neck. So if you're at home, that's how you massage the neck. Right now, he's doing
And he's
scalp
so
massage.
gentle. I like
Temple.
that. Yeah.
And on the camera, it looks gentle, but when you feel it, it has the right pressure.
The
because
right
some-
amount of pressure, yeah.
Right. If you notice where he's massaging the scalp, you don't massage the hair, it's the scalp itself. So you're moving it. You're moving, the scalp itself, where it relieves a lot of tension, especially when you have headaches. That type of massage helps you even sleep well at night.
Yeah.
All right.
we
So
want to go
let's see if we can move forward to the
Right.
back massage
to
now,
the back
so
massage.
people can try that at home.
Yes, so what he's doing, since he was massaging the neck, he's quickly cleaning off the funny mask
Yeah.
on her right face, and then
Because she has to turn over.
she's gonna flip over, and then we get the good stuff now.
Okay.
So while he's doing that, where are you guys located? Because trust me, when things reopen, people would definitely want to go there. So what part of the island are you located at?
We are on Front Street. It has a name, but everybody knows it as Front Street, and it's Avenida Icapo.
Okay.
And that's right as you get off the San Pedro Express water taxi, you walk through that basketball court, you take a left, 3 houses down, you're right at the spa.
Wow, can't miss it.
In Kitaka, we don't have numbers on the house. Everybody, the direction is Front Street or Avenida Icapo.
So you can't say number 3 Front Street.
No, we can't say number 3 Front Street. All right, so now Arise will be flipping over. And we will start out with that back massage.
All right.
There you go.
Yeah. All right, so again, to do a back massage, you need something to slide with. So if you don't have any massage oil at home, use your favorite lotion. Of course, the massage oil is better because it has ingredients that also help relax the muscles. So, but what Manuel is using here is a blend with lemongrass and peppermint.
Wow. Smells
Yeah.
good. Can imagine.
Yes. When you come out of the spa, you really, really smell delicious.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what he's doing right now, applying the oil. So for those who are at home, make sure you apply the oil all over the bath. And the important thing with this, because you don't have experience in doing a massage, just make sure that you don't massage the spine.
Yeah.
You don't want to go into the spine. So you're massaging just the muscles beside the spine. See, like what Manuel is doing, and again, it looks gentle.
But
And he's doing a Swedish technique, because if you do a deep, we won't show how to do a deep tissue, because if you are doing it on your partner at home, you don't want to hurt him.
You don't want
or
to
her.
hurt them, yeah.
Right. But what Manuel is doing that would relax them.
So talk to us about what we should feel and what we should aim for. So first off, you're not supposed to be massaging any areas with bones, especially the spine.
Right, and between the rib cage, because remember the rib cage is, you could, when you massage her, like what Manuel is doing around the rib cage, that's gentle. You don't want to use pressure there, because you could hurt the person. And that's below the rib cage where the kidneys are, you don't want to use pressure right there. But see how he's sliding? That's how you would want to do the massage.
All right.
Being careful not to go over any part of the spine.
And while for us, because I can tell you what we're seeing, it looks like he's just rubbing his hands on her back, but there's actual pressure. Is he applying pressure from the palm or from the pads of the fingers? Where is the pressure coming from?
The pressure comes from the palm, because you don't want to use your fingers and get hurt. And also you use your body weight when you want pressure.
Okay.
It's your body weight that gives the pressure. Because if you use your fingers, then you could injure your hands.
All right.
And the person that will be giving the massage at home, work with the, of course, it comes with practice. The more you do it, the stronger your hands. But whatever.
I love that little warning there that you're letting people know, yes, your hands do get tired.
Yes, it does. And then, whatever you do when it comes to touch, it's relaxing. That's the first thing we experience at birth. So that's something that relaxes every human being. So it doesn't, since you're doing it at home, it doesn't matter if you are using the right pressure, as long as you're giving it with love and you're making sure that you're not going into the spine. And then you could ask the person, how does the pressure feels, what feels right.
So this is not payback time for not doing the dishes. You got to be gentle with your partner.
Right. And then probably Manuel could show them a little technique there, how to work around the shoulder blade, Manuel. Since time is going, and then we have one more little thing that we want to show them. So you could put the arm behind the back gentle, and do it gentle. Don't grab the arm, and, because you could hurt them.
Yes.
And then go around the shoulder blade, like what Manuel is doing. You have all that tension between the shoulder blade. And everything that he's doing there help with relaxing all your aches and pains that comes from your neck. Because everything is a referral pain, and everything is connected. So there you go.
Man, I'm so jealous just watching this.
I know, man.
Yeah, you see.
We're coming to Key Cocker. We're coming to Key Cocker.
Anytime. Anytime. You guys come on over. Yeah, so that's
all right, Eva, we're running out of time now. Yes. So do we want to do the Reiki, or you want to finish up the back massage?
Well, it's up to you guys. Well, he could continue showing.
Okay, let's do the Reiki, because I think we've talked a bit about the technique. So let's start off with the most important question, and you can explain it to us. What is Reiki?
Okay, while Manuel flip her over and start showing you guys what is Reiki.
Yeah.
Reiki is a therapy that we often call hands on healing or palm healing.
Okay.
What and it's a technique where the practitioner works by placing his or her hands lightly over the patient body to facilitate the patient process of healing. The word itself, Reiki, um, it's combined with the Japanese and Chinese word called Rei, as in spiritual or supernatural,
Okay.
and Ki is the vital energy.
Okay.
So what Manuel is doing there, I mean, at home you won't be able to do that because you don't have the stones. He's using um, jade, jade stones, which help with balancing, and you apply it on the 7 different chakra, and all those jade stone has the Reiki symbol on it.
Oh, okay.
So what your next question might be, how does it work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So during a Reiki session, the patient typically lies down
Oh.
on the table, like how Arisa is, and what Manuel is doing there with the bowl that's called song therapy. He's just like harmonizing, making sure that he connects with that force,
Yeah.
that energy force. So then what he will be doing after, what he does with that song therapy, he goes all around the body.
Okay.
And you would have to experience it, John and Marlene. It puts you into that deep relaxation mode, you know, as you go along. Now, he will start off from the crown chakra and place his hands like a couple, it would be like 5 minutes, and depends where he is directed, because you concentrate, you are like meditating through the whole session.
Yeah. Is his hand touching her head, or is just a
Okay.
little off?
I'll tell you with that, in Reiki has some laws, like in other countries. If you would get a Reiki session in the US in a certain state, you might not be able to touch the body directly, just go above the energy points. But also you could touch.
Okay.
It depends how you are guided intuitively to move your hands over the body.
Okay.
So what he's doing, like healing the body, starting from the crown chakra, which is connected to the universe, to spirit, to God, to whatever you want to call it. Above the forehead, that's the third eye.
Yeah.
He's moving the energy from there. Then you go to the throat chakra, the heart, the solar plexus, where the navel is, and the root chakra. So those are 7 chakra, and that's what Reiki works with.
Wow.
All around the body. What do you feel as the patient getting the session? You would go into a deep relaxation. You would visualize like different colors. After the session, you would be able to discuss with your practitioner what was your experience, and he or her would explain to you what your experience means.
Is this better with complete silence or with music?
Yes, it has music. We have nice Reiki music, and it has to be in silence, just you and the therapist.
Wow.
And then as you go along, that's how he would put his hand all over the body to balance. How much time do we have, Marlene?
We are almost out. So
Okay, so all right, Marlene, that's the idea behind Reiki healing.
Okay.
And the benefit of that is to aid in relaxation. It assists the body's natural healing process. develop emotional and mental and spiritual well-being. That's what Reiki does for you.
And I want to be very clear because I know you're concerned. You don't want people to think that this is what happens in the spa. What you are teaching us is at-home versions for people to try on their own. These are usually longer processes that you spend with your clients when they're there.
Right. And this what you could do at home, Marlene. It's just, you won't have the stones, you won't have the sound therapy, but you could sit down in a quiet place, breathe in, breathe out, inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth, rub your hands together to cause friction, to warm it up, and then you start placing your hands. You could do it on yourself, putting your hands above your crown chakra, your third eye, your eyes, your throat, all the steps that I show, and that will help you to de-stress yourself. That's your me time, your moment to relax and meditate for 5-10 minutes.
Well, I feel relaxed watching, but I also feel green with envy. I won't even lie. I've been sitting here stretching, imagining it's
she has
me.
been. She has been.
But it's such a great, people who are at home and they're feeling a bit overwhelmed. And you say it can be spouses, but of course you can do it to your child. You can also maybe just have a good friend be able to work out some of the muscles. So, or you and your best friends can get together and have facials over Zoom, since we can't get together yet.
No, that's a good idea.
Yes, definitely.
But all of them are possible. We really appreciate you sharing
thank you so much.
This information with us. You, Manuel, and Arisa, for having this early morning. Once again, Healing Touch Spa is in Cocker, and when we are allowed to move around, we really hope that people go and are able to have this experience firsthand. Thank you so much, Eva.
Eva, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, too, John. Thank you, Marlene. Thanks for having us, and I hope that they could experience this at home.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, too. All right. With that, we're actually going to, hey, guess what? You could take some time to start off with some of that massage.
Yeah.
If you put the kids in front of the television for kids' time.
That's right. All courtesy to J&W Shopping Mart, which of course you can shop online with them. They're providing us with kids' time. And for today, Dr. Binax will be teaching us the invention of the microwave. Check it out.